ESPN reporter just dropped information that could destroy the entire 2026 WNBA season. The collective bargaining agreement expires tonight at 11:59 p.m. Eastern, and nobody can agree on anything. Caitlin Clark's momentum could be completely killed by a lockout that the owners refuse to prevent. The Caitlin Clark effect brought millions of fans to women's basketball, and the league is about to throw it all away over money disputes and ego. Do you think the WNBA will actually lock out and destroy everything Caitlin Clark built for the league? Let me know in the comments. ESPN's Alexa Filippo just laid out the nightmare scenarios facing the WNBA as the current collective bargaining agreement expires. The deadline hits at 11:59 p.m. Eastern tonight, which is just hours away as this information breaks. The possible outcomes range from bad to catastrophic, and every single one of them threatens to completely derail the momentum Caitlin Clark generated for women's basketball over the past year. Let's break down the 4 possible scenarios that Filippo outlined, because understanding what's at stake here is critical to grasping just how badly the WNBA owners are fumbling this situation. Scenario 1. An extension gets agreed upon by both the league and the WNBPA. This would be the clean, simple solution that keeps basketball happening while negotiations continue. But here's the problem. If they were going to agree on an extension, it would have happened already. The fact that we're hours away from the deadline with no announcement tells you everything you need to know. Nobody's budging. The owners don't want to give ground, and the players are tired of getting the short end of every negotiation. Scenario 2. No extension gets agreed upon, and the league plus the Players Association enter what's called a status quo period. This means the working conditions from the current CBA remain in place while both sides continue negotiating. Filippo was careful to point out that no extension doesn't automatically mean a work stoppage. This scenario would essentially be kicking the can down the road, keeping the league operational while they figure things out. But it's a band-aid solution that doesn't address the fundamental problems causing this standoff. Scenario 3. A work stoppage happens. This could mean either a strike initiated by the players or a lockout initiated by the owners. This is the nuclear option. This is the scenario that kills the Caitlin Clark effect completely and potentially sets women's basketball back a decade. If fans tune in expecting to see basketball in 2026 and instead find locked doors and cancelled seasons, they're not coming back. Casual fans don't wait around for labor disputes to resolve. They move on to other entertainment options. Scenario 4. They somehow pull off a miracle and agree to a brand new CBA before the deadline hits. Filippo made it clear that all signs point to this being completely off the table right now. Nobody's even discussing full agreement at this point. The gap between what the owners want and what the players need is apparently too wide to bridge in the remaining hours. The context here makes this situation even more complicated and urgent. The WNBA has major deadlines approaching that can't just be postponed indefinitely. There's a 2-team expansion draft coming for the Portland Fire and the Toronto Tempo. Those franchises paid massive expansion fees with the expectation of building rosters and playing basketball. If there's a work stoppage, what happens to their investment? Do they just wait around hoping the lockout ends before their inaugural seasons get cancelled? Then there's the free agency situation. All but 2 of the league's veteran players are hitting free agency this offseason. This is supposed to be one of the most robust and active free agency periods in WNBA history. Teams are supposed to be reshaping their rosters, making moves, building championship contenders. But if there's no CBA in place, none of that can happen. Players can't sign contracts. Teams can't make trades. Everything freezes. Are we ready to admit the Caitlin Clark effect? Is this happening without Caitlin Clark? Without the popularity, because we've seen what happened to the ratings where she was out for those 2-3 weeks. Remember that, right? Don't let me bring that up. Don't let me get some receipts now. Where Caitlin Clark was out, the WNBA's popularity dissipated. That is a fact. Ticket prices, television ratings, it's a fact. It's undeniable. It's undeniable. That's not to throw shade on a product and act like it doesn't grow at all. It's not to say that there was an improvement and it wasn't an elevation in its popularity. It's just saying that it's on another dimension when it comes to Caitlin Clark. Do you know what the best thing that could happen for the WNBA is right now? Are you ready for this? If Caitlin Clark and the Fever win the championship. If that girl wins the championship, this early in her career, this brings up a critical question that even people who cover the league closely are asking. What happens to the draft if there is a lockout? Does the WNBA lottery still happen? Do they still hold the draft and select players who can't actually sign contracts or play? The logistical nightmare of a work stoppage goes way beyond just canceling games. It affects every single aspect of league operations. Because this is the most popular woman basketball player in the world, and it ain't close. They had to move the Mystic game to an NBA arena. Name the time, and I'm going to turn it over to you because I don't want to get long-winded. I want somebody, one of our women colleagues, Stephen A., to tell me when a WNBA game has had to be moved because of a woman player. Just one. Just tell me one. Because I know in her attendance, she's averaging about 17,000. All the other WNBA games in which she's not a participant average about 7. So are we really trying to go to game? Is that what we're really trying to do? Or are we just talking about we're trying to grow the game and just bull jiving? Now let's talk about what this means specifically for Caitlin Clark, because she's the entire reason millions of casual fans started paying attention to the WNBA in the first place. Clark brought viewership numbers the league hadn't seen in decades. She sold out arenas across the country. She made women's basketball appointment television for people who had never watched a single game before. The Caitlin Clark effect was real, quantifiable, and valuable. But momentum is fragile, especially with casual audiences. These aren't die-hard basketball fans who will follow the league through thick and thin. These are people who tuned in because Clark was exciting to watch and the games were accessible. If those people expect to see Clark play in 2026 and instead find out the season is cancelled because owners and players can't agree on money, they're gone. They'll find other sports, other entertainment, other ways to spend their time and money. The owners are making a catastrophic miscalculation if they think they can just lock out the players and expect fans to wait patiently until negotiations conclude. Sports fans have short attention spans and unlimited entertainment options. Here's what makes this especially infuriating. The WNBA was finally making money. The league had been losing money for decades, propped up by NBA subsidies. Then Caitlin Clark arrived and everything changed. Television ratings exploded. Merchandise sales skyrocketed. Ticket sales went through the roof. Corporate sponsorships that had ignored the league for years suddenly came calling with big checks. The business fundamentals finally started working. And the owner's response to finally having a profitable product? Risk destroying it entirely by refusing to share those profits fairly with the players who made it possible. It's short-sighted greed that could kill the Golden Goose permanently. The timing of this potential lockout couldn't be worse for another reason. Unrivaled basketball and other alternative leagues are positioning themselves to grab WNBA talent. Unrivaled is offering competitive salaries, shorter seasons, and better working conditions. They're ready to swoop in and sign players if the WNBA locks them out. Some of these alternative leagues have serious financial backing and legitimate business plans. They're not going away. If the WNBA goes into lockout and players start signing with Unrivaled or other competitors, what happens when the lockout eventually ends? Do those players come back? Do they honor their WNBA contracts while also playing elsewhere? The competitive landscape for women's basketball is shifting, and a lockout accelerates that shift dramatically. The WNBA has been the only game in town for professional women's basketball in America for decades. That monopoly is ending, and a lockout hands leverage to every competitor trying to establish themselves. The expansion situation deserves more attention because it reveals just how dysfunctional this entire process is. Portland and Toronto paid expansion fees to join the league. Those fees were substantial investments based on projections of continued growth, driven largely by the Caitlin Clark effect. Those cities are planning arenas, hiring staff, marketing their new teams, building fan bases from scratch. And now, they might not even have seasons because the existing teams and players can't negotiate a new agreement. The Portland Fire and Toronto Tempo deserve better than this. Their fans deserve better than this. They committed to women's basketball at a moment when the league was finally gaining traction, and the reward for that commitment might be watching their inaugural seasons get cancelled before they even begin. Let's talk about the players' perspective for a moment, because it's easy to blame both sides equally, but the reality is more complicated. WNBA players have been underpaid for decades relative to the revenue they generate. They've been flying commercial while NBA players get charter flights. They've been playing in inadequate facilities while NBA teams get state-of-the-art practice courts. They've been doing off-season work overseas just to make livable salaries because WNBA wages alone weren't enough. Now the league is finally making real money, and the players want their fair share. That's not unreasonable. That's basic labor economics. The product they're providing is suddenly valuable. They want compensation that reflects that value. The owners apparently don't want to give it to them, at least not to the degree the players are requesting. But here's the problem with the players' approach. By potentially striking or allowing a lockout to happen, they're risking the very momentum that made their labor more valuable in the first place. The Caitlin Clark effect doesn't survive a cancelled season. The casual fans don't come back after a work stoppage. The players might win the battle over contract terms but lose the war over long-term viability and growth. The 30-day extension that brought us to this November deadline was supposed to create urgency for both sides to negotiate in good faith. The theory was that having a hard deadline would force compromise and creative solutions. Instead, it seems to have created a game of chicken where neither side wants to blink first. The owners think the players need the league more than the league needs any individual player. The players think the owners need the Caitlin Clark effect more than they need to protect profit margins. Both sides might be wrong, and the casualty of their miscalculation will be the league itself. The media coverage of this situation has been surprisingly muted, given what's at stake. Maybe that's because women's sports still don't get the attention they deserve from mainstream sports media. Maybe it's because everyone assumes a deal will get done at the last minute because the alternative is too catastrophic. But the lack of urgent coverage means casual fans, the very people the league needs to retain, probably don't even know this crisis is happening until it's too late. When those fans try to buy tickets for 2026 games and discover there is no season, the WNBA will have lost them permanently. You don't get a second chance to make a first impression, and the league made an incredible first impression on millions of new fans because of Caitlin Clark. Wasting that opportunity would be unforgivable. The draft situation is particularly murky. The WNBA draft is a major event that generates significant media coverage and fan interest. It's where college stars like Paige Buchers will potentially enter the league. If there's a lockout, does the draft still happen? Can teams select players who can't sign contracts? Do drafted players just sit in limbo waiting for the lockout to end, watching their professional careers get delayed through no fault of their own? The entire pipeline of talent development gets disrupted if there's no clear answer to these questions. College players might start considering alternative leagues if the WNBA can't even guarantee them the ability to start their professional careers on schedule. The draft is supposed to be a celebration of incoming talent. Instead, it might become a reminder of league dysfunction. Free agency being frozen is another disaster. Players have been planning their next moves for months. Teams have been strategizing about roster construction. Agents have been negotiating frameworks for deals. All of that work becomes worthless if there's no CBA in place to actually execute contracts. The league's competitive balance gets distorted because teams can't make the moves they need to improve. Star players get stuck on teams they want to leave. Franchises that were ready to make championship pushes get frozen in place. And through all of this, Caitlin Clark sits and waits. She can't control labor negotiations. She can't force the owners and players to reach agreement. She can only watch as the league that finally embraced her after initially leaving her off the Olympic team now threatens to waste the phenomenon she created. Clark's brand and marketability will survive a lockout. She has endorsement deals that don't depend on active play. She has a fan base that will follow her regardless of what uniform she's wearing. If Unrivaled or another league offers her a contract during a WNBA lockout, she might take it just to stay active and relevant, but the WNBA as an institution might not survive. The league needs Clark far more than Clark needs the league at this point. The WNBA owners are about to destroy everything Caitlin Clark built for this league. The CBA expires tonight, and nobody can agree on anything that matters. If the season gets cancelled, the casual fans won't come back. The momentum dies permanently. Caitlin Clark's 2026 could be completely wasted because the league can't get its act together.